Hey guys, this is Brian, and welcome to Full the Darkness, episode number 7, The Gates of Hell. I'm fairly old now, but when I was a teenager, my friends and I got our kicks by seeking out adventure. I was born and raised in a small cow town in Colorado called Brighton. There wasn't much to do in Brighton back then, so when we started getting our licenses, that meant a chance to explore. One such place that we'd always wanted to explore was a long, winding road just outside of city limits called Riverdale Road. The allure of Riverdale Road is that it's unnaturally dark at night. The road itself twists and turns around a sea of ominously tall trees, and it's a hotbed of urban legends. Throughout high school, we heard plenty of stories about the woman in the white dress hitchhiking on the side of the road, or red-eyed children appearing out of nowhere, or cults conducting satanic rituals there, and other such nonsense. We also heard about the Gates of Hell. That one interested us the most, because the backstory sounded like something that was at least plausible. Apparently a mansion used to stand there, and the owner, for one reason or another, burned the entire thing to the ground in a fit of madness while his family was still inside. Now, they said, all that remained of that piece of land was a set of iron gates leading to nothing more than a lot full of dirt and a burnt tree stump. The legend, of course, was that it led straight to hell. None of us believed that, but it sounded like an eerie place to spend an evening, so one night we all piled inside of my dad's car and headed up there just after dark. The road was creepy, sure, but nothing we really paid attention to as we eagerly searched for the Gates of Hell. We ended up having to get off on a very hilly dirt road and park the car, and sure enough, after a walk, we found some very old-looking gates. We hopped them and found some disheveled chicken coops, and it was obvious that a fire had occurred there once upon a time ago. But that was it. Sure, we gave each other a few jump scares and laughed our heads off, but we didn't do much more than creep ourselves out. After about an hour of poking around, we hopped into my dad's car and headed back, satisfied with our night's entertainment. It wasn't until we got to my girlfriend's house and were ready to call it a night that my girlfriend, Kelsey, realized she was missing her necklace. She thought she might have lost it when we were exploring past the gates. Apparently it belonged to her grandmother, and if Kelsey's mother found out Kelsey had lost it, she'd be furious. Kelsey asked me to go back and look for it. 2 of our 4 friends had already gone home, and the stragglers were giving us excuses about curfew. I told Kelsey, okay, let's go. But she said her mom would also kill her if she left the house so late at night. So my job was to head back there alone, hopefully find it, and then bring it back to her house and toss a pebble at her window. While her parents slept, she'd sneak to the back door so I could give her the necklace, and her mom would be none the wiser. It didn't help that she gave me puppy dog eyes and swore it was a family heirloom. I accepted, partially because it's hard for me to say no to women, and partially because Riverdale Road had been a bust. I mean, what's the worst that could happen, I thought. I had already seen everything. At least I thought I did. That arrogant, naive decision is something I still deeply regret. I drove back down Riverdale Road after midnight, and this time it seemed, different. Maybe it's just because we were talking so much before and looking out for the gates rather than taking in the surroundings, but the road itself seemed darker, more deserted. I know that's ridiculous because people live along that road, but at that moment I felt like there was no one around for miles to help me if I was in danger, and I did feel like I was in danger. This I realized when I looked at the signs posted along the side of the road and discovered that all of them seemed to have something smeared on them. I don't know what it was, but it reflected off of my headlights and gave off the appearance of something being vaguely splattered along the words and numbers long, long ago, and having stained it so badly that nothing could ever fully wash it away. I tried not to think about what made those smears. Instead, I traced my way back to the dirt road and parked my dad's car. From the moment I got out, I felt this deep, unsettling weight in my stomach. I heard the grass swishing behind me suddenly, but when I looked behind me and cast my flashlight, I saw nothing but unkempt grass that was way too tall. I was psyching myself out, I told myself. I just needed to get in there, get the necklace, and leave. The walk up to the gates could only be described as uncomfortable. It was as if everything around me was all wrong, out of place in some way. Or maybe I was the one who was out of place. I hopped up, pulled myself over the gates, and landed clumsily on the other side. It was as I was grabbing my fallen flashlight and dusting myself off that I felt another whish of movement behind me. I turned and saw nothing but those ominous gates. I told myself it was the wind, even if another part of me was saying that wind didn't move like that. I started scanning the ground in a panic, pacing so quickly and shining my flashlight so erratically that I could hardly absorb what I was looking at. I just wanted to find this necklace as quickly as I possibly could, grab it, and run like hell. But I wasn't seeing anything. The ground was bare earth, and I didn't see the shimmer of jewels anywhere. Now, a thought crossed my mind at that moment, Something deep in my gut told me to just run, to tell Kelsey that I looked all over and didn't find it, that I'd return with her in the morning when it was light out. I should have done that. I shouldn't have kept looking. Because almost immediately after that thought crossed my mind, something caught my flashlight's beam. It wasn't the necklace. It was white and dull. I knelt down to get a closer look, and that was when I realized it was a bone. Now, I've seen animal bones before, and this did not look like an animal bone. It was long and thin, weathered, slightly chipped at one end. It looked like a leg bone, or maybe an arm bone. It looked like it belonged to a human. At that, my heart began racing and I bolted back to my feet. My friends and I had explored this entire area only an hour ago, and would have easily spotted a foot-long bone in the dirt. Why this was here now I didn't know, but it made the whole thing even more unsettling. I heard the whoosh again, something moving behind me, and once again I looked behind me and saw nothing but those gates. I should have just run. I should have just booked it straight toward the gates, but I didn't. I turned back around to face the darkness ahead, the vast emptiness, and that's when I heard movement. I shone my flashlight toward the sound, and saw the silhouette of a figure some 20 to 30 feet away. I couldn't make out any of the details, but it was walking right toward me. At that, my only thought was turning around, hopping the gates, and sprinting back to my dad's car, but my legs felt like jello. I willed them to move, but I was frozen in place. I've never felt so paralyzed, never felt so helpless before in my life. Maybe I was imagining it. I pointed the flashlight down, and then back up, and saw nothing. But I still heard the movement. I heard the pace of something approaching me, and I was frozen like a statue. I lowered my flashlight again, and I clenched my fists, and I closed my eyes. This wasn't happening. This was not happening. I prayed to someone, anyone, please stop this hallucination. Please send this thing away. Please just let me get out of here. If that happened, I would never set foot in this wretched place again. And then I opened my eyes, and when I did, I found myself staring directly in the face of a dead woman. The skin on the right side of her face was gray and peeling away from her skull, slumped down over her eye, almost as if it was melting. I only saw her left eye, which was gray and hollow but full of so much hatred. Her hair was white and stringy. Her mouth moved like worms. She said only one word, and it sounded like the guttural kind of moan that someone makes when they get the wind knocked from them. Leave. My legs finally regained sensation, and I turned around without a second thought. I have never run so fast in my life. When I reached the gates, I practically hurdled them. I know I didn't, but it felt like I did, because I was scrambling for my very life. Whatever that woman was, I could still hear her behind me, still feel her behind me, even when I pulled open the door of my dad's car and fell into the seat. I fumbled the keys out of my pocket and cranked the ignition. I couldn't bring myself to look out the window or out the windshield and dare see her face again. I just stared at that ignition and prayed it would start. It was cranking and cranking, which made no sense because my dad's car was only 1 year old at that point and barely had any miles on it. After what felt like an eternity, the car stumbled to life, and at the exact moment I threw it into drive, I felt something slam against the back window. I didn't look into the rearview mirror to see what it was. I simply planted my foot on the gas and stumbled out of there. And stumble is really the only word for it. My dad's 1-year-old car sputtered like it was going to die out at any moment. The gears clunked when they changed. I had wanted nothing more than to do what the dead woman commanded, to leave, and the car was struggling to reach 20 miles per hour. That ride home was the longest of my life, not just because of the dying car, but because I kept seeing the woman's face in my mind. I could see her lifeless skin melting off of her bones. I could see her staring directly into my soul with that single dead eye of hers. I could see her lips moving like worms. I didn't go to Kelsey's. I just went straight home, where I lay awake all night in my bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking of that face. The next day, Kelsey called me and was upset that I never showed. I tried to tell her what happened, tried to tell my friends in coming days, but they all thought I was just pulling one over on them, or better yet, just making up an excuse to cover up the fact that I simply went straight home instead of trying to search for the necklace. At a certain point, I just stopped trying to argue. My dad was even more furious. His car was a mess. It still ran like crap, and there were now handprints smeared all over the back window. He didn't believe anything I said either, which I kind of figured would happen, and he just assumed I screwed it up driving down Riverdale Road like a maniac. He took it to his mechanic, and all told, the car's spark plugs were shot, some of the vacuum hoses were severed, and the transmission was toast. I spent 2 years paying him back for that, and I still have no idea how any of it happened. Kelsey never found her necklace. I broke things off with her shortly after that, and I stopped talking to my friends once I realized my experience was one big joke to them. I moved out of state immediately after high school, and I've only been back to visit my family periodically. I refuse to go anywhere near Riverdale Road, and I've gotten better about it in recent years, but some nights I try to sleep and all I can see is that decrepit, peeling face hovering just before me, and I can hear that disgusting, raspy voice telling me to leave. It's been 20-something years and I can still see it just as clearly as I did that day. It's not something you forget. So I know that most people are listening to this because it's entertaining and it's scary and you, like my teenage self, might get some quick thrills out of it. But I want this to serve as a warning, too. If you go up there, and you really shouldn't, do not go alone. You are not wanted there, and you will see things, and maybe people, so horrifying that it will truly haunt you for the rest of your life.